A very good day and a good evening to one and all. We are back with another session after I think we've completed two modules, that is understanding the drama, then Renaissance to Restoration. Today we are here with another module, block 3, that is modern English drama. Right. In this, we're going to learn about the modern drama, its introduction, its brief characteristics, why is it called so, and what is it that makes it different from the other dramas. And then we have two plays, which was written during this period by George Bernard Shaw, that is Pygmalion, and then Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. So let us begin with this an introduction to modern drama. So I'll be sharing the screen. Right. So when we talk about this modern drama, so modernist movement in England was much less innovative in technique than it was in its poetry and novel. Then modern English drama, which refers to plays written in the 19th and 20th century. So the drama, which had suffered a steep decline during the Victorian age, was revived with great force at the beginning of the 20th century, and the course of 6 decades has witnessed many trends and currents in the 20th century drama. So, well, let me just give you a definition of what modern drama is all about. Modern English drama, which refers to plays written in the 19th and 20th century. Now, as we all know, there was a sudden decline, I mean, kind of a decline of this dramas during Victorian period, unlike Elizabethan period, where it was quite doing very well after the Restoration period. Then, but there was a remarkable decline during the Victorian period. Right. Modern English drama, which deals with real situations, real characters, real incidents, the use of everyday language. It also deals with common man, an ordinary man who suffers the difficulties of life. Now, this type of drama is called anti-hero drama. Why? Because there is no distinguished hero like that in Shakespeare's drama. On the contrary, he or she suffers as other individuals who complain the same difficulties of life. Since the Elizabethan era, drama or playwriting was a popular form of literature and art, with Shakespeare as the pioneer in England. But over the years, change in social and political atmosphere brought about many modifications in the genre of drama. Especially in the late 19th century, playwrights from other parts of Europe, for example, Norwegian and German dramatists, brought a new flavor to the contemporary theatre work. This resulted to the birth of European drama that influenced modern age literature in many ways. Since the basis of European drama was social and political theme, these plays reflected multiple ethos of their age. So first and foremost, let me tell you what had the characteristics of modern drama. But before that, I also want to throw light as the major impact factors which led to this kind of modern drama. First and foremost, impact of industrialization. Now, the modern society, when we talk about industrialization, brought along a wave of changes in the lives of the people living in Europe. The modern age saw rapid growth of big cities, capitalism, decolonization, gender sensitivity, two world wars, and so the shift in world economic powers. So the modernism that took over the European world during these times created a wave change in the literature and arts of this age. With the political and ideological shift of its times, European drama also began to show a shift in form and matter. Beginning from the late 19th century, the theatre saw a big transition in themes, characterization, and form of writing plays. Now, in the age of restoration, that was during 18th century, drama had been restricted to heroic tragedies or restoration comedies. But in the modern age, playwrights began to experiment with their content after being inspired by the changing socio-political tastes around them. Some of the major contributors to the collection of works in European drama were playwrights like Henrik Ibsen, Harold Pinter, Samuel Beckett, Bertolt Brecht, and others. Now, again, another impact factor I would like to mention when I move on to the modern drama is about the First World War. Now, between 15th and 19th centuries, Europe was the center of power in the world's political and economic front. It was this multinational power sharing that led to the First World War in 1914. By this time, modern Europe had become the greatest action center for the world's most highly rated work of art, literature, science, as well as political ideologies. Now, as always, political changes had their impact on the kind of literature that was being written during these modern times. The drama of this age shows how industrialization had affected the social setting of the countries. Dramatists also targeted the middle class and the effects of decolonization on the imperial class of Europe in the plays that they published during these times. Now, the dramatists of the earlier years of the 20th century were interested in naturalism, and it was their attempt to argue real problems of life in a realistic technique to their plays. Now, it was Henrik Ibsen, the Norwegian dramatist, who popularized realism in modern drama. He dealt with the problems of real life in a realistic manner of his play. Now, his example was followed by G.B. Shaw in his plays. The modern drama has developed the problem play. This is again another kind of a play where it's called as problem play. And there are many modern dramatists who have written a number of problem plays in our times. Now, they dealt with the problems of marriage, justice, law, corruption, poverty, and inequality. Not only social problems are shown in their writings, political and religious issues are also by so daring dramatists like Ibsen and Bernard Shaw. They used theater as a means for bringing about reforms in the conditions of society prevailing in their days. Henrik Ibsen's play, A Doll's House, is a good example of a problem play. Now, in it, the dramatist focuses on the fake relation of modern marriage. The woman's play starts to emerge gradually after a long years of exploitation and deprivation. The modern drama is essentially a drama of ideas rather than action. The theater is exploited to spread a free expressions of real issues with treatment of actual. The modern drama develops its message to be drama of didactic purposes in addition to ideas. A drama is striking, influential, and real as it presents characters along with a natural and credible aspects. Common themes in the new early 20th century drama were political, reflecting the restlessness or rebellion of the workers against the state, philosophical, investigating the who and why of human life and existence, and revolutionary, exploring the themes of colonization and loss of territory. Henrik Ibsen is famously known as the father of modern drama. Please remember this point. Henrik Ibsen is famously known as the father of modern drama, and it is worth recognizing how literal an assessment that is. He depicts life as it is in its real features, thus he gets the approval of the modern readers and viewers. The difference between the traditional drama and modern drama is actually the theme and style. Now, traditional drama dealt with supernatural elements, fate, heroic deeds, etc. Whereas modern drama deals with realism, absurdism, and some of the famous modern playwrights are Henrik Ibsen, George Bernard Shaw, and the American modern dramatists are Edward Albee, Arthur Miller, and among them, Henrik Ibsen, considered as father of modern drama. Then, moving on to the characteristic features of the modern drama. Now, if you look at it, realism, that is the prominent characteristic feature we find in the modern drama. It is the most significant and outstanding quality of modern English drama. The dramatists of the earlier years of 20th century were interested in naturalism, and it was their endeavor to deal with the real problems of life in a realistic technique to their plays. Now, as I already told you, that it was Henrik Ibsen who had popularized realism in modern drama. He dealt with the problems of real life in a realistic manner of his play. His example was followed by Robert Arthur Jones, Galsworthy, and G.B. Shaw in their plays. Now, next, it is the problem play. The modern drama has developed, and there are many modern dramatists who have written a number of problem plays in our times. They dealt with the problems of marriage, justice, law, administration, and strife between capital and labor in their dramas. They use theater as a means for bringing about reforms in the conditions of society prevailing in their days. Henrik Ibsen's play A Doll's House is a good example of problem play. Please remember, Henrik Ibsen's play A Doll's House is a good example of problem play. Now, what is a problem play? It's a kind of an experiment in the form and technique and dispensed with the conventional devices and expedients of theater, where the play which revolves around a particular problem. Hence, it is called a problem play. Now, when you, I think we'll be doing this doll's play, then you will understand what exactly the problem which is involved around which the whole play is being weaved. Next, coming to play of ideas. Modern drama is essentially a drama of ideas rather than action. The stage is used by dramatists to give expressions to certain ideas which they want to spread in society. Modern drama, dealing with the problems of life, has become far more intelligent than ever it was in the history of drama before the present age. With the treatment of actual life, drama became more and more a drama of ideas, sometimes veiled in the main action, sometimes didactically act forth. Next, moving on to the Romanticism. The earlier dramatists of the 20th century were realistic at the core, but the passage of time brought in a new trend in modern drama. Romanticism, which had been very clear, dear to Elizabethan dramatists, found its way into modern drama, and it was mainly due to Sir J.M. Barrie's efforts that the new wave of Romanticism swept over modern drama for some years of the 20th century. Now, Barrie kept aloof from realities of life and made excursions into the world of romance. Now, poetic plays. T.S. Eliot was the main dramatist who gave importance to poetic plays and was the realistic prose drama of the modern drama. Stephen Phillips, John Drinkwater, Yeats were from those who wrote poetic plays. Now, history and biographical plays. Another trend visible in the modern English drama is in the direction of using history and biography for dramatic technique. There are many beautiful historical and biographical plays in modern dramatic literature. For example, G.B. Shaw's Caesar and Cleopatra are historical plays of great importance. John Drinkwater's Abraham Lincoln and Mary Stuart are also historical plays. Irish movement. Again, a new trend in the modern English drama was introduced by the Irish dramatists who brought about the Celtic revival in the literature. In the hands of the Irish dramatists like Yeats, J.M. Synge, T.C. Murray, etc., drama stopped to be realistic in character and became an expression of the hopes and aspirations of the Irish people from remote ways to their own times. The comedy of manners, I think we've already done it in the earlier episode. There is a revival of the comedy of manners in modern dramatic literature. Oscar Wilde, Mom, and Coward have done a commendable job to revive the comedy of wit in our days. The drama after the second has not exhibited a love for comedy, and the social conditions of the period after the war is not very favorable for the development of the artificial comedy of the Restoration age. Impressionism. Another important feature of modern drama is Impressionism. It is a movement that shows the effects of things and events on the mind of the artist and the attempt of the artist to express his expressions. In the impressionistic plays of W.B. Yeats, the main effort is in the direction of recreating the experience of the artist and his impressions about reality rather than in presenting reality as it is. The impressionistic drama of the modern age takes into consideration the impressions on the artist. Next, moving on to expressionism. What is this form? Now, it's another important feature of modern drama. It marks an extreme reaction against naturalism. It is a movement that tries to express the feelings and emotions of the people rather than objects and events. The movement, which had started early in Germany, made its way in England drama, and several modern dramatists like C.K. Munro, Elmer Rice, J.B. Presley, C.N. O'Keze have made experiments in the expressionistic tendency in modern drama. Major writers. If you look at these major writers of this period, some of them are G.B. Shaw, Henrik Ibsen, J.B. Singe, and of course, there are quite a good number of writers. Like you also come across T.W. Robertson and H.A. Jones. Then we also have, of course, Henrik Ibsen. Then we Galsworthy and Barker. So there were, then we have W.B. Yeats and so many other writers we have in this period. Now, another important aspect of the modern drama I want to mention here is about the absurdism. The philosophical, I mean, along with naturalism and realism and the absurdism is another aspect where, it's like, one of the, which is actually brought in by one of the prominent modern playwrights, that is J.M. Singe. So, in his Playboy of the Western World, he showed how people accept absurd things or happenings in their life. Samuel Beckett has developed this type of drama throughout his plays. Now, it actually refers to the movement that arose from man's quest for meaning and truth as a result of the social upheaval because of the world wars. Now, absurdist playwrights refer to the theories of Albert Camus, a French philosopher who introduced the philosophy of the absurd, where he compares man's state of conflict to understand the world and the meaning of life. Right. Then, moving on to the Pygmalion. So before going on to, let us peep into or get a brief intro about the author or the playwright, G.B. Shaw. George Bernard Shaw. He was born in Dublin, Ireland in 1856. He grew up poor and lacked any professional training due to his dislike of it. In his 20s, he moved to London and became a music and theatre critic and a member of the Fabian Society. As a theatre critic, he argued that a theatre of ideas should replace the sentimental theatre of the time. Shaw used his plays to expose the hypocrisy and complacency of British society. Shaw used his plays to expose the hypocrisy and complacency of British society. Mic checking. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Yeah, is it clear? Can you hear me? Right. George Bernard Shaw wanted to force his viewers to face the reality of unpleasant events. He promoted the unpleasant place by publishing a long preface in which he could argue his views. Shaw was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1925. He continued to write until he was 94. Mic 15, 150. Mic 15, 150. Mic 15. Mic testing. Mic testing. Well, uh, if you look at his notable works here, Arms and the Man, Man and Superman, Pygmalion, Saint John, Major Barbara were some of his notable works, and he's been awarded with Nobel Prize for Literature in 1925. Right. Mic testing. Yeah. Now, his plays are product of late Victorian and early Edwardian period. Now, these are defined as problem plays, divided into plays pleasant and unpleasant, featured with ideas, discussions, and wit reflecting conflict and paradoxes, tailored with realism, socialistic and didactic in nature, designed to campaign new thinking reforms and corrective measures. Now, coming to the title Pygmalion, which is written by Shaw, and the title is based on the legend of famous Greek sculptor named Pygmalion, drawn from Ovid's famous poem Metamorphoses. Now, according to the story, he fails to find goodness in women in general. So he carves out a statue of a woman and names her Galatea. He fails in love with his own creation. He falls in love with his own creation and marries Galatea. So this is actually the backdrop of this piece of writing, that is Pygmalion. Now the play is divided into 5 acts. Was written in 1912. The The play contains the story of the Greek sculptor Pygmalion and his love Galatea as a backdrop. Henry Higgins is the Pygmalion who picks up a gutter snipe from the slums, Eliza Doolittle, and turns her into a refined and eligible woman in the society. He pours life into her through his instructions on manners and speaking skills so that she could be presented among the high ups. Now, his practice of correct pronunciation of English phonetics stands as the focus of the play. Social inequality and education to cross the boundaries of social norms are some of the issues on the in the play. Now, if you look at this main characters of Pygmalion, you can see the kind of the role and the relationships, conflict which is arising, and the significance of this. Eliza Doolittle, she's a protagonist, poor flower girl who wishes to be rich and happy. Mr. Higgins, antagonist, professor of phonetics, and tries to teach Eliza the proper ways of society. Now, Pickering, Colonel Pickering, he's another researcher of phonetics. Mrs. Pierce, motherly figure and housekeeper. Freddie Hill, and when you look at this Eliza Doolittle, she's a daughter of Alfred experiment subject to Higgins and Pickering, possibly means more to Higgins. Whereas Mr. Higgins and the conflict, which when you look at Eliza Doolittle, is like, she cannot change her inner characteristics to suit the newly changed outer appearance. And well, it is, what is the significance of this? It's able to stay true to herself and to not conform to please society. Well, this is again the characters which you find in this play Pygmalion, Professor Higgins, Alfred Doolittle, Mrs. Higgins, Mrs. Pierce, Freddie, Mr. Pickering. Now, if you look at the historical context of Pygmalion, now this is a play which is set in the early 20th century at the end of the Victorian period. Now, during this time, London was the capital of the wide reaching, powerful British Empire. Victorian society was characterized by a rigid social hierarchy, but as the 20th century began, social change was on the horizon. Now, importantly, women had not yet gained many basic rights and privileges. Shaw's Comedy of Manners, which satirizes the customs and habits of the Victorian elite, plays with the and critiques the social conventions of this historical moment. And this is, in fact, a problem play, the Pygmalion, which is, which deals realistically and with controversial social issues, and which is known as problem play or discussion play. Now, they strove to make the audience think and discuss the issues. Henrik Ibsen demonstrated the potential of the problem play, but Shaw brought this type of drama to its intellectual peak. He used polished wit and clever language to transform the English theatre into a marketplace of ideas. Scenes of ugliness or suffering are rare in Shaw's plays. Unlike the somber Ibsen, he preferred to keep his audience laughing while confronting serious issues. Now, in Pygmalion, Shaw tackled the idea of language as a class barrier, showing how speech and manners can dictate a person's place in society. Written during the tumultuous days of the suffrage movement in Britain, it also addressed the role of women in society. Now, this is actually a play where a man who picks up a poor person off the street who sells flowers, named Eliza Doolittle, and the man's name is Henry Higgins. He makes a bet with another man named Pickering. Now, that bet was to see if Henry could make Eliza, the poor girl from the streets, into an elegant, beautiful girl with good manners. But I think that Henry gets too attached to Eliza. So when she overhears Henry and Pickering talking about how they thank God it's over, she gets quite upset. Henry Henry gets into a fight and she leaves. Henry Higgins was a gentleman. He dressed up appropriately for different occasions and always tried to look his best. Now, if you look at the themes of these, you can see it's all about the language as a class barrier. G.B. Shaw laments that the fact that the English do not sufficiently value the power of their language. Through the character of Higgins in Act 1, he reminds the audience that the articulate speech is a divine gift, and the eloquent words of Shakespeare and Milton and the Bible form the basis of their native tongue. The defining nature of language is illustrated when Higgins accurately pinpoints the geographic origins of various people among those sheltering from the rain. He then declares that the flower girl, Eliza's curbstone English will keep her in the gutter, yet by teaching her better English, he could pass her off as a duchess. This boast serves as the catalyst for all that follows in the play, as Shaw attempts to show that social placement is not innate and hand in hand with language and may be acquired. Now, another theme which we can look at it is transformation. Shaw explores the theme of transformation by showing how a poor flower girl becomes a lovely, self-reliant lady, both superficially and at heart. Her metamorphosis begins with an idea planted by Higgins when he tells Pickering in Act 1 that he could teach this creature to speak like a duchess. It takes a further step when she's given a bath in Act 2, cleaning her up so well that even her father does not recognize her. By the time she visits Higgins' mother in Act 3, the transformation is well on its way. As Mrs. Higgins tells her son, She's a triumph of your art and of her dressmakers. Now, again, another theme we can figure out is appearance and identity. In Act 1 of Pygmalion, Henry Higgins is thought to be a policeman. Though one bystander points out it's all right, he's just a gentleman. Look at his boots. Throughout the play, appearances identify the social status of characters, how they speak, how they dress, their money, and their manners and morality all serve as indicators. Yet the signs are superficial, often contradicting reality, as in the case of Henry Higgins, who has all the trappings of a gentleman and a few of the expected social graces. Another important theme which you come across in Pygmalion is femininity. Victorian values strictly defined the status and functions for women and established firm boundaries for femininity among social classes. In Pygmalion, Shaw illustrates these class boundaries and roles through various characters. At the bottom tier of the hierarchy is the flower girl, Eliza, a member of the working class poor. Mrs. Pierce Higgins, housekeeper, represents the servant class. Doolittle's wife to be once the dustman comes into money, represents the middle class that has achieved a higher standard of living through work. Mrs. and Miss Ainsford Hills, members of the genteel poor, do not work. Occupying the top tier is Mrs. Higgins, an upper class lady of some wealth who has raised a family and keeps a home. Right. Now, next, moving on to another important play of this module is A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. Henrik Ibsen, Johann Ibsen, born in 1828, March 20th, and died on 23rd May 1906, was a major 19th century Norwegian playwright, theatre director, and poet. He is often referred to as the father of realism and is one of the founders of modernism in theatre. He is the most frequently performed dramatist in the world after Shakespeare, and A Doll's House became the world's most performed play by the early 20th century. Henrik Ibsen. He born in Skien, a tiny coastal town in the south of Norway, born to a merchant father, went bankrupt, raised in poverty. Mother was a painter and loved theater. Age 18, fathered and supported his illegitimate child through journalism. Failed his entrance exam to the university where he had hoped to become a physician. Now, Catiline, a tragedy which reflected the atmosphere of the revolutionary year of 1848, which sold only a few copies. The Burial Mound was performed 3 times in 1850. The first performance of Catiline did not take place until 1881. After successfully performing poem glorifying Norway's past, Ibsen was appointed in 1851 by Ole Bull as stage poet of Den National Scene, a small theatre in Bergen. During this period, Ibsen staged more than 150 plays, becoming thoroughly acquainted with the techniques of professional theatrical performances. In addition to his managerial work, he also wrote 4 plays based on Norwegian folklore and history, notably Lady Inger of Ostrat, dealing with the liberation of medieval Norway. In 1852, his theatre sent him on a study tour to Denmark and Germany. Well, his major works include Brand, Peer Gynt, and Enemy of the People, Emperor and Galileon, A Doll's House, Hedda Gabler, Ghosts, The Wild Duck, Rosmal, The Master, Builder. 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 The Master, Builder Now, coming to this play, A Doll's House, is a three-act play in prose by Henrik Ibsen. It premiered at the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen, Denmark on 21st December 1879, having been published earlier that month. Now, I'll just give you a brief summary about this. Now, before that, let me just look into the characters. Nora Helmer, wife of Torvald, mother of three, is living out the ideal of the 19th century wife, but leaves her family at the end of the play. Now, please remember, this is a problem play. Now, Torvald Helmer, Nora's husband, a newly promoted bank manager, suffocates but professes to be enamored of his wife. Dr. Rank, a rich family friend, he is secretly in love with Nora. He is terminally ill, and it is implied that his tuberculosis of the spine originates from a venereal disease contracted by his father. Christine Linde, Nora's old school friend, widowed, is seeking employment. She was in a relationship with Krogstad prior to the play setting. Nils Krogstad, an employee at Torvald's bank, single father, he is pushed to desperation. A supposed scoundrel, he is revealed to be a lost lover of Christine. The children, Nora and Torvald's children, Ivor, Bobby, and Emmy. Annie Mary, Nora's former nanny, she now cares for the children. Helene, the Helmer's maid, the porter delivers a Christmas tree to the Helmer household at the beginning of the play. Now, if I just give you a glimpse into this plot, Nora and Torvald Helmer are a typical middle-class Norwegian household in the late 1870s, but the visit of an old friend of Nora named Kristin Linde and an employee of her husband, Nils Krogstad, soon exposes the cracks in their picture-perfect union. When Christine needs a job, she asks Nora for help, interceding for her with her husband. Torvalds consents, but he does so because he fired Krogstad, a lowly employee. When Krogstad finds out, he threatens to expose Nora's past crime, a signature she forged to obtain a loan from Krogstad himself in order to afford treatment for her then ailing husband. Now, Nora Helmer. Now, if you look at this summary, Nora Helmer once secretly borrowed a large sum of money so that her husband could recuperate from a serious illness. She never told him of this loan and has been secretly paying it back in small installments by saving from her household allowance. Her husband, Torvald, thinks her careless and childlike and often calls her his doll. When he is appointed bank director, his first act is to relieve a man who was once disgraced for having forged his signature on a document. This man, Nils Krogstad, is the person from whom Nora has borrowed her money. It is then revealed that she forged her father's signature in order to get the money. Krogstad threatens to reveal Nora's crime and thus disgrace her and her husband unless Nora can convince her husband not to fire him. Nora tries to influence her husband, but he thinks of Nora as a simple child who cannot understand the value of money or business. Then, when Torvald discovers that Nora has forged her father's name, he is ready to disclaim his wife, even though she had done it for him. Later, when all is solved, Nora sees that her husband is not worth her love and she leaves him. Now, if you look at the major themes in this uh, play. It is the drama that is money. In 19th century society, money is considered more important than owning a land. And those who have it command a lot of power over other people's lives. So Torvald has a profound sense of self righteousness because of his access to stable, comfortable income. Another theme we come across here is appearances and morals. In the play, society was subject to a strict moral code in which appearances were more important than substance. Torvald is overly concerned with decorum, even more so than with his alleged love for Nora. Eventually, Nora sees through the hypocrisy of the whole system and decides to break free from the shackles of the society she lives in, leaving both her husband and her children. Another theme we come across is a woman's worth. Norwegian women in the 19th century did not have many rights. They were not allowed to conduct business transactions on their own without a male guardian acting as a guarantor. While Kristen Linde is an embittered widow who works in order to escape existential dread, Nora has been brought up as if she were a doll to play with her whole life. She is infantilized by her husband, and who calls her little lark, songbird, and squirrel. Now, if you look at the literary style of this A Doll's House, it's an example of realistic drama in which the characters interact by talking in a way that closely approximates real life conversations. According to a local critic who reviewed the premiere in Copenhagen in 1879, A Doll's House had not a single declamatory phrase, no high dramatics, no drop of blood, not even a tear. Now, here I would like to mention a few facts about A Doll's House. Now, this play was considered to be a scandalous for its time. It portrayed a woman not only forsaking her marriage vows, but acting independently and renouncing obedience to her husband. Another fact is when the play was performed in Germany, Ibsen was forced to write a different ending. Now, in the new ending, Nora's husband dominated her and put her back in her place in accordance with society's standards. Another fact is only after 10 years was A Doll's House performed outside of Scandinavian and Germany. Now, if you look at the historical context of this play, it is like the rise of the new woman. The period was marked by agitation for women's rights in Europe and USA. And the term new woman was coined in 1894 to define a self-sufficient woman. The play became a key text for groups seeking to empower women, for which Mrs. Linde is an example of that new woman. Another point here I would like to mention for the context is independent Norway. Norway had become an independent kingdom in 1814. Ibsen was employed by the Norwegian theatre to create a distinctive national drama. He wrote in the ordinary language of Norway, which had only just acquired a written form. The Norwegian landscape and weather are an integral part of the play. Again, another point here I would like to mention is the industrialization. The rise of industry created a new middle class in Norway. And the middle class sometimes found their new prosperity fragile, hence Helmer's concern about debt. Now, industrialization meant opportunities for women to work as clerks. Then naturalism. Ibsen was a pioneer of his style, which aimed to present on stage an imitation of a real environment. They show how they are affected by their environment. Nora behaves as the men around her have taught her to. actors largely ignore the audience. It's like watching a room with one wall removed. So basically, the meaning, if you look at this, the title of the play means a woman who has no mind or will of her own. A doll's house, therefore, means a house in which there lives such a woman. The word doll in the play is applicable to Nora. She's a doll because during the 8 years that she has spent as Helmer's marriage partner, she has always been a passive and subservient kind of wife to him. Now, at the end of the play, Nora is no longer a doll. She's a woman and individual in her own right. She would now discover her own potentialities and seek to achieve the fulfillment. Now, it is quite appropriate because it signifies the kind of a life that Nora has led for 8 years in her husband's home. And her exit from her husband's home is turning point in her life. Her exit can prove to be a new starting point for Nora. Well, I hope this was quite clear. And any sort of doubt, you can please uh, come back in the next session. And anything with any of the modules which I have taken up in the previous sessions, any doubts regarding, you can come up with those. But before that, I would always suggest that you have to read the material before coming in for the sessions. Right. With this, I end the session. A happy weekend and a happy year end and a happy new year in advance. Thank you all.